Canine Detection Collaborative, a detection dog training trio with Stacy Barnett.
Hi.
Robin Grubel.
Hey there.
And Crystal Wing.
What's up?
With humor and a big dose of theory, our trio talks practical training advice and features interviews with top trainers and scientists.
It's Canine Detection Collaborative.
Hi, everybody. I'm Robin Grubel, and I am here with Stacy Barnett.
Hello.
And Crystal Wing.
Hi there.
And we have just come off of 3 weeks of teaching, training, trialing, certifications, everything, everybody being here in Iowa at the farm all together. And often what ends up happening when the students go to bed or we get some instructor time is we end up having these conversations, typically more philosophical. And one of the things that we were talking about quite a bit when all three of us happened to be here at the farm was the whole concept behind training poorly or training poorly with other people can actually set you back in your training, even if it's just once a month, or trialing or certifying or attempting a certification too soon, and how that can actually put you in a training hole. And so some of our students were talking about that the people that they work with don't set up problems that are helpful in their training. And so I think we just kind of wanted to kick around for the next hour, things like advocating for your dog, really sticking to your guns on what you need for your training, and really just talking about how not pushing too much can actually be detrimental to your training. I have a student with a really young dog who is training with some people who may not have her same training philosophy. And she's talking, I have this puppy who I'm trying to get ready and I want to do detection work with. And she goes, I go to train with these people. They think that they're helping me and they're setting up these problems. And they tell me things like, well, if you don't continue to push the dog is going to get bored. I'm like, you know what? It's okay. Your dog has all of the fundamentals that it needs. Let the dog grow up,
Yep.
And it's getting ready to go through the teenage years. So it's recreating its brain at the moment. So just let it grow up and go do other stuff, odor work once a week and go from there. So,
And it's difficult if you're a pointy ear person working with a floppy ear person and that's all they know, or that's the only breed they've ever worked with as well. And so if they have these preconceived ideas of how the dog should work and they don't understand the different breeds and what they bring to the table, that's also a little bit difficult. And then, also methods. Some people have very strict, they follow step by step by step.
they have a laundry list.
Yeah. And if you aren't in their box or in their method, then it's really hard for them to help. And so a lot of times I think ego gets in the way. And I think that's where a lot of our problems happen, unfortunately.
Yeah, actually, the breed differences is really stark, right? Because especially if you even look at the development and the training of different breeds, some breeds are going to catch on a little bit more quickly than others. They're going to search differently. They're going to, they're going to react differently to pressure. I think that's also a big part of it, especially, I'm kind of, if you have somebody who's used to more of a pointy eared type dog, and then they're starting to work with more of a floppy eared type dog, the floppies tend to be a little bit softer, right? Generally,
Or more forgiving.
But yeah, a little bit more forgiving. That can cause issues.
And
I'm thinking about dogs that have like a really low stimulus threshold and are super reactive. I'm going to have to work with that dog way differently, even in the same breed. So thinking about, I think you called it a bench lab or something versus, like a
bench lab, like a confirmation
lab,
a field lab versus like a chocolate, lab that loves to be on the couch. Yeah, there's just so many different of the same breed even. But that stimulus threshold is so huge.
Can I have a timeout? Can I have a terminology timeout?
Yeah,
sure.
So you said reactive, and I actually have to think about, I've started trying to think about a reactive dog slightly differently, I think, and maybe it's just me. When I think reactive,
I've struggled with that word myself.
Right. So I'm going to say terminology timeout. What I have started thinking about reactive as is a dog that is hyper aware of their entire surroundings, and they react, probably in an escalated fashion, no matter if it is a human or another dog or
like the trigger level is a little lower.
Right. Instead of, because usually when we're thinking reactive,
or a dog that doesn't have those reactionary.
Right. Usually when you think, I heard reactionary dog or reactive dog, and I'm watching these dogs walk around and do all this stuff. And I'm like, well, they're not reacting to other dogs. They're just kind of all over the place and don't know how to keep themselves sort of under control. So,
and I think reactive for me, I'm thinking about stimulus thresholds. I think that's more from the protection world. So you have that level of stimulation to trigger a response. And you have to think about that in lots of different categories, even not just one. So they just have, like, if the dog has a really low threshold, they react very quickly. So they're more reactive in that category. But it doesn't mean the dog is a reactive in the connotation sense of they're going to bite your face off. But for motion, maybe that dog has a lower threshold. But then maybe for pressure, they have a higher threshold. And so you have to look at the stimulus thresholds in all these different ways, and then not say or label the dog as reactive or not reactive, but it's just the response they have.
Right.
So a higher threshold takes more to cause a reaction. I guess that's how I think about it.
Yeah, that's actually a really great way to think about it, because I think that the word reactive gets a really bad rap, and it becomes like a little bit of a label that you slap on a dog. This is from what I've seen, right? Which is it's a slightly different perspective, but they slap a label on the dog, and now all of a sudden the dog is also grouped as like, oh, that's an aggressive dog. It's like, well, no, the dog just has a lower, to your point, lower threshold for a response, right?
Right.
I mean, so for instance, why my mini Aussie's reactive, but he's dog reactive, and he is okay with dogs to a certain point, but if they act a certain way and they get a little too close, he's going to have a reactionary response.
And I think about a couple of my labs are reactive in the sense that a bird flies by and they like lose their brains.
Right. Well, you saw Powder when I had her on leash when Paul flew over.
Try to eat Paul. Yeah. And then
she did. Yeah.
Right. And then I also think those exact same dogs I can take and have them walk through a crowd at the local amusement park to do narcotics and bomb dog work, and they're just fine.
I think it goes back to the selective drives though, too. And I think drive is one of those things that also gets kind of thrown around and could use some terminology there. Because I mean, I perceive drive as motivation, and we have that selectively put into our dogs through pedigree, through breeding. And it's just those internal impulses. It's the urges, the motivations that they have to act. And it's all very biologically significant, so we look at the border collie, and we talked about how they want to go to the borders and herd everything in when it talks about odor even. And then, just the different motivations that are already intrinsically in the animal. And I think that also plays back into this whole drive specific and this stimulus threshold as to what they're going to react to. I think about Checkmate. He's super reactive to sounds. So he has a very low level of stimulation to trigger anything. If he hears a loud bang, he's going forward. He's going toward it. Whereas a human, he doesn't have that. He's very happy and very marshmallow and wants to give you a hug and gives you kisses. And so you just have to look at it in all those different categories, but you have to also understand what motivates your dog. And that's what drive is.
Right. And that's how they refer to, people can't see it, air quotes, right? Drive in the literature is motivators. What is intrinsically motivating to the dog? So welcome to this huge terminology timeout on, we started on one thing and went all the way over to drive, right? So,
Yeah.
But you have to understand those things too, because I've heard, like, I'll go to training and the trainer is, oh, your dog is just incredible prey drive. They're just, oh, wow. And, I don't think that what they're saying is quite what they think they're saying. And so that's when we start talking about that no training is better than, bad training. And if we don't have the common terminology, if we don't understand where each person is coming from, or if we can ask someone, I think we had a good point this last one, when you ask your instructor or the person you're working with, why are you doing that? What is the goal?
Uh-huh.
And if they don't have an answer for that, it may be that they just intuitively do it, or it's a method they follow, but it gives them a chance to think about what it is and why it is they're doing it. And maybe they need time to think about it to get back to you, because they're just an excellent trainer that's an intuitive trainer. And I've had to work really hard at that to start really verbalizing why I do things. And it's hard. It's very hard if you haven't done that before. And I was even being kind of ornery to Christy and T-Mac this last weekend. I'm like, what did you like? Why did you like it? And they give me that face. I'm like, knock it off.
I've started uploading those videos, and you can see some of those faces from the instructors where they're like, I'm having a brain cramp. And it's not that they don't have good things to say. It's this, because one of the things that we've actually started doing, we started this during Distraction Camp, is we're giving feedback to our students while they're running all the way to the car with their dog, doing their whole little reinforcement experience. Being able to give that feedback to the students that they permanently have is awesome. So, and we actually had a couple of the students ask us over the last 2 to 3 weeks of, how do I handle, I want to go trial, I want to go certify. And it turns into this whole conversation of, are you ready? And because especially in a certification, some of the certifying bodies that I am an evaluator for, I'm not allowed to tell you yes or no. You go do the whole thing and you come back and you debrief when you're done. I mean, that's how my bomb dog certifications are done. I have to go search my entire thing. And then we go back to the evaluating official after I've called time, and I tell them, here are where my hides are. And they then tell me yes or no. So I am so not reinforcing my dog while we're in the middle of the whole thing. So I have to build that into my training.
So I had a conversation with some folks this past weekend when I was teaching, and someone said, well, what happens when your student comes up to you and says, well, do you think I'm ready to trial at such and such a level? And it was just interesting. It's like this really great question, and we started to kind of toss it around a little bit. And you really have to look inward, I think, to answer that question, as opposed to asking someone who you respect, right? Maybe your instructor or your clinician or whatever, to say, am I ready? I think you really have to feel that, this is my perspective, is like, you have to feel like you could go out there and you could be successful. And the words, well, let's see what happens, that scares the living crap out of me.
I usually tell people that if that comes out of their mouth while they're doing a training problem, not only do you get the danger, Will Robinson, danger, little robot coming out, but then you have Robin kind of come out of your car and like threaten to knife you. Sorry, don't do that.
You're good at that.
And if you're younger than 45, that danger thing is a reference to a really old show, and just don't worry about it.
It's okay.
Oh my gosh, we're all old.
Or Google it. That'll be your culture reference for today. Yeah.
I will put it in the show notes. Why not?
just Google it. And
Sorry, Robin.
It's okay.
No, it's really funny. Because if you're sitting there going, what was that? Yeah.
I also thought it was interesting. Are you ready to certify? Are you even ready to go to a seminar? I think back to last weekend, and there were a couple people that, one, their training buddies were saying, I can't believe you're going to a seminar. You're not even ready. And then another student was, I'm not ready to go to a seminar because I don't know enough. And so it was interesting, the different reasons of one was getting all this pressure because they're basically implying that her dog's not good enough and she's not good enough. And then the other one was, I'm not good enough to go to a seminar to learn the things that I need to learn from the people I need to learn from.
So this is where, honestly, auditing is a great thing.
Absolutely.
I do think there are some dogs that are not seminar ready. And it doesn't mean that the handler shouldn't be there. But
Agreed.
A lot of dogs, I mean, that is a high pressure situation where you have different people, you've got like a clinician who odds are you're paying more for than your local instructor because it's a seminar, right? And you're trying to get feedback. There is a lot of pressure, and people are watching because that's part of the seminar experience. So you may have, a dozen people watching you. And if your dog can't like come out and fluently, I'm going to use that word, fluently search at least comfortably, right, with other people around, maybe the dog shouldn't be there. But that's where auditing comes in, because you should be there. You should be there. You should go. You should watch. You should learn. But some dogs, they're probably not ready.
It's one of those things where it's a fine line for me, because I think about some of my students who, or when I'm at certifications, and I have people who will say, well, I get really stressed for certifications, but going out on a deployment doesn't stress me at all.
That's backwards.
I am the absolute opposite. Because a certification at this point is a confirmation of my skill set. And I think, a trial would be somewhat similar, but you guys also have really cool, challenging stuff that gets set up at trials. But for me, right, on a deployment, if I miss somebody, that has like huge ramification type of stuff. And at the end of the day, for a certification, I have started adopting the mentality of, if I fail, I'm going to learn some really valuable information from me and my dog. And I've just spent the money to have somebody set up blind hides. So it's basically coaching.
Yeah. Which is, same thing with the trial, right?
Right.
It's, what I want to do with a trial, I don't want to bring a dog, first of all, to the trial that I don't think is going to knock it out of the park. So the dog has to at least feel comfortable. So it depends on my dogs. Okay. So thinking about like my girls, they've got to be able to knock it out of the park. I am thinking about trialing Y at Elite, and my goal for him, I want him to knock out the goal I have for him out of the park. The goal for him is to go and be comfortable and find some hides. That's the goal. So I want the dog, like if I have a goal, I don't want to bring them to the trial if they can't knock that goal out of the park. So that's kind of like the gateway, right? To be able to trial. And the trial, sometimes trials, from a competitive perspective, are really set really well for your dog. Maybe they play to your dog's strengths. Sometimes they don't. And you may go away with a result that was less than what you had hoped for. But from there, that is such a great learning experience, because what it does is it puts a flashlight, right? It shines on the gaps.
It's a little magnifying glass that says, hey, this is a gap.
I was like, whoa, I didn't even know I had that gap, right? And then you go home and you train for it. And you don't trial again until you fixed it. So that's my perspective. That's my soapbox.
Right. And I also think people may underestimate the damage, not necessarily to, the world at large or whatever, but to the progression in your training goals. That trialing or attempting a certification too soon may do, because it magnifies your apprehension and all of those sorts of things, that if you mark something incorrectly during a trial or a test, are you going to break your dog? Probably not, but that means you're now going to go back into damage control mode. And it's when you have single event learner dogs, which are, some of your higher drive dogs are that way, or even border collies, it can really then take you a long time to be like, no, I didn't mean that. And especially the border collies are looking at you going, whatever.
Let's define that single event learner. I have my example of Bravo learning how to open a refrigerator. Happened once. She's highly motivated for the 2 pounds of chicken that she gorged on and then went and threw up, right?
Right.
So but that was still a positive experience for her because she's a Labrador. So it happened once. And I'm like, that was weird. I closed the door. I go out 5 minutes later to take another dog out to go to the bathroom. I had to go on leash because we had alligators, blah, 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 right? Come back in, refrigerator door is open again. At that point, if I didn't shut that down I wedged a chair, right, to try to keep the refrigerator closed. If I didn't do anything about it at that point, forget it. I'd never be able to keep anything in the refrigerator again. Without Bravo.
I have video.
How I define that.
Yeah, I have video of Moses at 6 months old lying down in front of an Ensler box, which is a prop that we use to train the disaster dogs. And he ran up to the Ensler box, lied down, and barked once at the age of 6 months.
Wow.
And in front of the next time it took him a while to figure out where to bark. The next repetition, he ran up right in front of the hole, laid down, and barked once and got reinforced. For the rest of his life, when put in front of an Ensler box, which looks like a big box or a guillotine box, every time he would see that specific prop, he would lie down and bark at the hole. Every other prop where he had to do the whole bark and hold thing, a bark barrel, whatever else, he would stand up and bark at. But an Ensler box, he would do a lie down and bark. And that is a single event learner.
My example for that's Yukon. He learned from Quinn. We were in the backyard and all I said was drop to Quinn. He dropped his toy. And then he saw that Quinn got rewarded. And then when Quinn came back, I said drop. And Yukon spat out his toy just as fast. And Yukon has one of the best drop that I've ever had of any of my dogs. It's just so reliable and so beautiful. And I didn't have to teach it. He just was, that's what you do? Blah, okay.
Thank you.
So I'm also thinking about, like, from a trialing perspective, back before, box smashing was like a big deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
It kind of wasn't a big deal at the very, very beginning. It turned into a big deal, but I had Judd, right? And you start, it's all cardboard boxes. He was a box smasher from the beginning and I didn't address it. What was interesting is that until his dying day, if he had a white literature mailer and it had odor in it, his foot was going on it. But if it was any other kind of container, it was all nose, right? If it was a plastic shoebox, it was his nose. If it was a metal paint can, it was his nose. If it was a toolbox, it was his nose. White box, foot.
It's amazing how those context setting cues are so important for our dogs.
Yeah. Now I know, of course, because I know more now that I see a glimmer of that behavior and we fix it immediately.
But I'm going to tie it back to what we're talking about. The whole heart of it is no training is better than bad training. So one rep of a bad repetition can be enough to really have a huge impact. And so if you're training with someone that has bad timing or doesn't understand your goals, and I think that's a big piece of it, though. I think we kind of assume that people are having objective-based training. And I've trained with enough people to recognize that a lot of times is in the SAR world, we just show up to a location and we say, oh, look, here's some cool stuff we can do here. And it's not...
If replace SAR with nose work, you're right on.
Okay. Look at this cool place I found and all the cool places I can do stuff, but it's nothing that's really about what you or your dog need right now. And that's the objective based part. So we have to assume that not everybody is on that that wavelength.
I would say most people are not. I'll put it that I am going to put a stake in the ground. Here's my stake. If you were to have 100 people training their dogs, max 5 have an objective. And maybe I am like completely pessimistic. Maybe I just like have just a really, I don't know.
Maybe we should take a poll.
Stake in the ground.
Ooh, maybe when this podcast goes live, we're going to put a poll out on the Facebook group about who does.
Let's do it before it goes live, because if we do it before it goes live,
then we can talk about it.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
But people are going to be like, oh, this is a loaded question. Of course I do objective-based training. And it's going to be skewed. Here's my pessimism just bubbling out.
You're like a soda stream of pessimism on this.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. I'm not usually, but this is observation this is my assessment based on observation. And it's like, oh, this is cool. Let's put a hide here. Oh, what about here? What about here? And you end up with like, oh my God. And the dogs can't.
But is it one of the cases of you don't know what you don't know? Because if you've never trained with someone that doesn't
think that way,
I think because we're all teachers and instructors, we automatically think objectives. We have a goal, and then we think about the steps that it's going to take to get there. And I think that allows us to also kind of adapt on the fly, which also allows us to be able to help others, because we can adapt, and we've seen these problems in our own training and other people's training. And we're also students of dogs. So we're already kind of adept at seeing that. But if you've only had your one dog, and maybe you're not super competitive and you're okay with just, hey, let's go out and see. Is that okay? Sure. For that person.
Danger, Will Robinson, danger.
No, but let's say that you're right. But in nose work, I'm
sitting here and I'm like, I'm just trying not to blurt.
I know I'm putting you in rough spots, but here's my thing that really bothered me. What Robin said a few minutes ago, and I heard it from a couple people now, that they get nervous in certifications, but they don't get nervous in SAR deployments. And it just really tickles my brain when they say that, because there's so much on the line there. And I recognize that maybe it's because with the certification, they don't get to search anymore. And so they're putting that pressure on themselves. But where is that pressure when it comes to going out and saving a life, or, giving a family closure?
Right.
Yeah. So it just gives me an uneasy feeling, and I still can't quite figure it out. And I don't know. And in deployments, that is not the time to find gaps. And that's what I feel like some people kind of do. But if you find those gaps, but that's not the time that I want to use it to find those. And I think sometimes that's what training is. It's just testing to find gaps. And especially when we're training with other people that have that mentality and they don't have the objective-based mentality of let's get a goal, that's where you're just setting yourself back every time you train with them. And even if you think it's helpful just to train with someone else other than just yourself, it's not.
It's not.
No, you end up mirroring them. You mirror them accidentally.
You do.
And you don't even know you're doing it.
Yeah.
And you just end up mirroring them.
Think about Yukon and Quinn. They mirror.
I mean, I've trained with a friend of mine, and we went out and we trained, and she handles very, very differently than I do. I'm like, why is my dog not like, we're just out of sync. And I went back and I realized I changed my handling because of her. And it was just like how you like when you talk to somebody, and if they have an accent, sometimes your accent changes a little bit and you start like speaking with a slightly different accent.
Hey, coach, what do you mean? We just spent a week with Canadians and Northerners.
Yes.
Having some fun.
You're going to end up sounding like a Canadian. I swear to you, that's what happens. I soak up. I
love you, Canada.
I totally love Canada.
I was thinking about this as I was listening to some of the students talk about, well, we train here and we train here and we train here. We look at where we get deployed and we go train in those environments and all those things. And I was like, okay, my objective for you is to stop thinking that you need to train in all of those environments, but you should be able to show up in those environments and be able to say, these are the skills that I'm working on, and we will work on these skills in this environment. I did a whole webinar on objective-based training last fall out on my website.
Is it still available? Is it available on your website?
Yeah, you can purchase the recording. I will probably deep dive into that this fall on how to set things up for whatever skill that you're thinking about. But understanding and being able to dice down those skills, and that's what trialing and certifications are for, is they're basically confirmations of, okay, here are the skills. You have the basic skills on what you need for professional detection dogs, right? To go out and do what you are supposed to do. For trialing, it's, yes, we want to highlight the fact that you have these awesome skills, but somebody may have set something funky, and here's some things that you can go home and work on. And if you're going to shove you or your dog into a situation in either place, that one, you put so much pressure on yourself that if you fail, are you just going to hang up your leash? Matching law can kick you in the butt because you mark the wrong thing, or you do something inadvertently during that trial or that certification. Now you're in damage control when you get home, and you spend more time recovering from those mistakes than you would have spent preparing for the next certification or trial that might happen in 3 to 6 months.
And you don't want to go in trying to show off for other people. You want to go in training your dog, being with your dog, being a teammate, and not that I'm going to go and show. I remember my very first seminar, I desperately wanted a working spot, and it was with Shade Weitzel. And at the time, I wasn't able to get a spot. And my motivation was I wanted to show off. I wanted to show off my amazing dog. And oh my gosh, this was 2012, I think. And so I'm glad that I didn't have a working spot. It would have been my very first one, but I would have had my butt handed to me big time.
That was the deep end.
Yeah, when you're at that kind of a little bit cocky stage, and it would have been pretty crushing, I think. And she's not crushing at all. She's super helpful. But just for myself, it would have been one of those, oh crap. So I'm glad it worked out the way it did.
Going back to objective-based training, I kind of thinking about it from the nose work perspective. A lot of people don't really practice outside of class. So they go to their classes and they run the hides that the trainer has set. And I think part of it is when they do that, they may not actually know why the instructor set the hides the way that they did. So they're just working the hides. Maybe they're known hides, maybe they're blind hides, maybe it's a combination of both. I think most instructors don't actually say, this is why we set the hides this way. I don't get the sense that people do that. So then if those people go like, oh, hey, let's get together and train, they get together with other people. They don't necessarily have a precedent of like, hey, let's work on trapping odor, or hey, let's work on a single hide search, and then we can, work on building, a skill for elevated hide, or let's work on hide commitment. Let's do a single hide search over here, or maybe, let's focus on, threshold hides or whatever, or maybe let's just work in a distracting environment. I don't think those conversations I think they do to a small degree, but I think there is not a lot of that discussion going on maybe in classes. Maybe I'm mistaken. I don't know. And I guess that's why I'm kind of like those 5 people max, because it's just.
So I would agree. In the search and rescue world, we have, because of the way the certifications are set and with odor boxes and those sorts of things, I think people think about it a little bit more. But I don't think there's a concept there. And most of it's like, oh, I'm just going to go run a hide.
Yeah.
And that's okay as long as you know what you're going to mark or what you want to reinforce, what behaviors you want to reinforce. But it's been interesting for me over the last, we had distraction camp, and then I had some privates, and then we had another seminar. So yeah, the last 2 weeks has been training, which has been interesting to watch the handlers start being able to, when they walk up to the line to send the dog out to search, that they begin to start articulating, this is what I want to be able to mark in this particular event or this particular training rep. And some handlers, I'm sure that some of them want to stab me by time we're done, because I start asking them, which, I threaten to stab Crystal a lot.
You can borrow your knife.
Yes. And so I ask them, well, what behavior you're looking for? Well, I want my dog to get close to odor. Well, what does that mean? And I go through 5 iterations until they are finally actually defining the behavior that we want, because unless we know what behavior that we want, we can't actually mark that particular behavior.
And that's what objective-based is. I think maybe that's something good to clarify too. And I guess, it's just being in the classroom so many years, it's just second nature. But really, you're just trying to define that task or that behavior that you're wanting to teach, or you want your learner to understand and learn. And you're going to break it down. You're going to slice it to the point that you can master it. And It's important. And why is it important? Well, it's because you have this idea, you have these goals, you have this vision, and you're turning it into these measurable targets. And that's where we shared in the past about SMART goals. And that can be a great place for people to start. And what that gives you, SMART is a mnemonic acronym, and it's just giving you criteria to help you set goals and objectives. And so SMART is, S is for specific, M is for measurable, A is for attainable, R is for relevant, and then T is for time-based. And at first it may feel like that's a lot, but when you start thinking that way, you don't have to go through all of those criteria every time. So if it feels kind of heavy, practice it a couple times and you'll find that it becomes very easy and you don't have to think about all the things. But when you're able to create these specific measurable outcomes, all of a sudden your training comes together so much quicker and so much more efficient, and you're able to do more fun stuff. So if you ever feel like you're lacking motivation and you just don't know what to do next, maybe start there. Start with the SMART goal and get an objective and practice it. Try it. That could be a fun little thing to do. And if the person you're training with has no idea of any of the stuff we're talking about, teach them. You can do that. Share our episode.
Exactly.
So I think we should probably also say, training's hard. And I just want to make sure that people realize that it's hard. This is hard stuff. And you're not going to get it right on the first time. It's not easy. And I just wanted to put that out there because people are saying, wow, that's a lot of stuff to do. It's not easy. I think we all reckon.
I would say 90% of my training does not happen when the dog is standing next to me. It's thinking about designing, especially with the younger dogs, right? Because I'm molding that dog into what I want it to be. And I really want to think about my hide placement. I want to think about where I start. And just as a little tidbit for 90% of the people out there who are doing ORTs or some of the other kind of containers and things, start closer to the container. You don't need to start 20 feet away. Just as a tidbit.
Sorry, that just hit me. It's because it's like, I see it all the time.
Right. And I've got 80-pound Dutch Shepherd and 65 to 70-pound labs that if we started 20 feet away from a container, by the time they hit the first container, they've built up. We're like at Mach 5.
Sound barrier.
Yeah, we've broken 4 sound barriers. I need them at Mach 1 to do, or at least thoughtful to do the container. So start closer. But so using those sorts of little tools to be able to, and even my young dogs, how many containers am I putting out today? What lesson am I trying to teach? I'm trying to, I might be trying to teach that every box matters. And so every box has got something stinky in it, because if I teach them through the placement of those stinky things that they have to put their nose on the box and they really have to think about what they're smelling. And when we hit the hot box, we have a fast train final response, which we've trained outside of all the box stuff. That's one lesson for that dog for that day. Once we've learned that lesson, okay, we can build on it the next time. I remember Crystal and I were out training with one of the hunting dog people I know, and he inadvertently was talking about how he would place certain bumper piles in certain locations, and he would choose where he sent the dog from, because he needed the dog to learn a specific lesson, because he was thinking about his dog as a learner. And so we would run it in this way. And to get the dog to understand that it can do swim bys, it can do these things, and that's perfectly acceptable. So I've started really trying to couch it to people about what lesson would you like your dog to learn with this particular hide or this particular exercise.
And part of my favorite training, and probably my most important training that I feel like I've been doing recently, are my play and engagement sessions and my hiking with my dog.
Amen.
I think sometimes people don't realize how important those sessions are, to just go out and engage and play and just enjoy that amazing four-legged creature. And that's something that I can't stress that enough, of how important it is to have fun. And if you're not having fun in your odor work and you're not having fun in your obedience work, bring that back in. And I think immediately you'll see results. You'll get huge dividends, but you have to get that play game together, whether it's with food or social play or toys, but keep that game going first. That's the most important training you can do. And when you go to a trainer, and I think you said, you'll die on that cross, or whatever you said, whatever that expression is. But when we say that no training is better than bad training, I will never go to a trainer that tells me that play and engagement are not important. Run.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah. Agreed.
It should not be a funeral procession.
It's not robots. We're not training robots.
and if it's not fun, why the heck are we doing this? And how can we expect our dogs to be to have motivation for the odor if we don't engage them, if they're not having fun?
I come from the bite sport world, and I've seen some pretty kind of interesting things, things that I would never think about doing to dogs or any creature ever. And I've been hanging out with people that are doing these things to their dogs, and they love their dogs dearly, but it's the only way that they know to train because of who they're training with. And it's interesting sitting there listening to them and having lunch with them, and they're just so in love with their dog. But then they would go on the field and they would do things that they absolutely did not want to do to their dog. And then they would come back and feel badly about it. And if you're ever in that situation, you don't have to do that. There are other ways. There are other people. Advocate for yourself and for your dog. I don't know. There's been a lot of years of seeing that. And I see it in odor. I see it, but I really see it a lot in protection. And advocate for your dog and yourself. If you don't have a good feeling about it, listen to your gut. You don't have to do it. If someone is doing something to your dog you don't like, just because you think they know more or they have more titles or more experience, I don't care.
If you go to a seminar, or if you even go to class and you see a hide and you're like, I think my dog's going to lose confidence if they try to work that hide. My dog's not ready for that hide. It's okay to say, I'm not doing this one. It's okay. Wrecking a dog's confidence is probably that. If you want to pick one thing that'll keep you out of competitive nose work, fear and lack of confidence. That's it. You're done.
That's everything.
Go ahead and quit now, because if you add fear or you take away confidence from that dog, forget it. Just say, all right, we're going to go do another sport, because at that point it's over.
Right. as an instructor, I would very much appreciate a student if I had set out a hide that I was like, well, this is what we're doing. I appreciate a student who comes up to me and says, I want to run this hide, but I don't think that the way that it is currently set is going to be beneficial to my dog. I would love for a student to say that to me. And then we would actually turn it into a teaching moment of, okay, why do you say that? Because I can easily modify my hide, or we modify where you start, or we modify, there's all of these other things that you can modify in order to get it so that the dog can still have the confidence. It can still do the lesson that it needs to learn, all of these things. But that goes back to advocating for your dog. And sometimes if you are in an environment where you don't feel safe to say that, I think my dog's tired right now.
Yeah, that works.
I'm going to pass on this round.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's okay.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes too, you've paid this money, and that's also hard because you're seeing this person as an expert. And I think about some of the people that have come to classes, they go back to they don't know what they don't know. So they are just going to let you do whatever because they don't know any different.
Yeah.
So that's hard. It's like,
it is hard.
Also, there's responsibility on the trainer also. I'm not going to let the trainers get out of this. There's no get out of jail free card here. If you have a student, because your student may not really know that hide is going to be too much for the dog, because maybe your student is maybe it's their first dog that they're training, and they don't really know what is difficult and what makes a hide difficult. Because honestly, when we get hides with our human eyes, it can look really easy. Mm-hmm. But when we start to think about what odor is doing, it's actually really complex. I have a lot of people that say, oh, well, one hide, no big deal. I'm like, one hide, pretty tough, right? So instructors, you need to watch the motivation of your dog, of the dogs that are running, the confidence of the dogs that are running. And honestly, have the guts to say, we're done with this, just stop the search. Because I think we get so worried, like, oh, well, our students are our customers and they want to get their money's worth. And I'm going to make my students sad if I stop the search. No. The priority is the dog. Stop the search. Yeah.
I've been in situations where I'm like, no, just go put your dog up because this is not presenting the way that I thought it was going to present. So I need to relocate the hide.
Exactly.
It's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I get a lot of people that go, oh, but I wanted to find the hide. I'm like, well, at what cost?
Well, and I think back that the odor was removed and the handler didn't know it. And they were getting furious that their dog wasn't responding and wasn't giving any sort of indication as what was going on. And it was an interesting thing of seeing how much pressure they put on their dog and how angry they were and how the dog was shutting down. And then they found out, oh, the odor's not there anymore. Oh, what a tough lesson to learn.
That's a little gotcha there, though.
Yes. That's a little bit of a gotcha.
It wasn't a gotcha, though. I mean, it was a machine malfunction. And so the odor should have been there, but it wasn't.
Okay. So an accidental gotcha.
It was accidental, completely accidental. But the response that we have to have, we can't be so reactive. We have to have a higher stimulus threshold. And some of us don't. Yeah. We have to recognize about ourselves too. Like we're all different breeds.
We are. And we'll give the dog a break. And just like if the dog isn't finding the hide, maybe it's the hide's problem instead of the dog.
Don't get mad at your dog.
Right.
It's a teachable moment for yourself and your dog. Figure out why it didn't work and try to keep your anger at bay.
We also have been using the whole comment, the terminology. So maybe this is now turning into a terminology episode. Maybe we should do one on that, on pressure, because pressure in one world might mean electricity.
Right.
In Another world might be body pressure, might mean mental pressure by the handler, is all of these different forms of pressure.
Yeah.
And even just up in their space pressure, body pressure for your dog. So the types of pressure, I can bring a whole lot of pressure to bear just by the tone of my voice, and seeing Crystal go from little Miss Happy, I'm a high school art teacher, to, oh my gosh, I can run your dog off the field. It took me a whole long time to get those two little things married in the same sentence to realize that it's acting.
It's a lot of acting.
Crystal's fierce.
Right.
Fierce.
And I think about, it's down to, and watching Crystal work with a lot of the dogs this year on, well, frontal pressure is too much. So for this dog, I don't make eye contact. And walking through all of those little subtle things about pressure has been really interesting to me, that it's more than just tools. Yep. So that was my whole little, let's think about the pressure internally, externally, all of those things that you're bringing to your dog. And when you walk in the ring or walk out for a certification, you smell different because you're under pressure yourself. And so you've got all those little stress hormones going on in your body.
And I had to check myself because I put a lot of pressure on myself to do well. And because that's my type of human that I am, I automatically do that with my dogs as well. And so that's something I really have to keep in check, is that I'm not putting that, because if I mess up, and even that of being mad at myself, then the dog is like, whoa, what did I do? You didn't do anything, buddy. You're cool. Mm-hmm. So I really have to keep that in check. Yeah.
Some of the trials, right? I had a student of mine say, wow, you put a lot of pressure on yourself. And I'm like, well, honestly, there is pressure. It's like, out of what I've run in 7 trials, I'm titled in 5 of them. And actually, well, there's a whole story around a 6th of them. But I've been in the top 5. I'll put it that way, in the top 5 and 6 out of 7 trials. So every time you go to a new trial, you have all of that previous success actually applies its own pressure. There's actually positive pressure that gets applied to the handler.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
Because I love competition, and the pressure of competition makes me get excited. So there's also, I like what you said, the positive pressure there too.
It's positive pressure, but it's still pressure. So you still have to cope with it. And that coping with it, if you don't cope with it the right way, can really negatively affect your dog.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that is really off topic, but I totally all in
But it's kind of not off topic, because it's the no training is better than bad training. And if you are in a place that you can't mentally or emotionally or socially or whatever train your dog in that moment, don't.
Oh, okay. Now I can see where it's on topic. I get it.
I mean, how many times I love one example this summer with Robin. I had all these training plans and all these thoughts, and I was super excited about all these things. And poor Robin was just, I think I might wear her out sometimes. And she might sleep for the next week whenever she's not important, doing all of her important farm and all the meeting stuff. But anyway, there was a moment and I was like, this and this and this and this. And she looked at me and I said, what do you want to do? I just want to play with my dog.
Right.
And it was the most glorious play session, and it was beautiful training. And it was so great to see the joy that her and her dog had together. And I always go back to that. Whatever you're feeling, tap into that and use that. It was a beautiful moment. I appreciated that, Robin.
Wow. And I want people to think, everybody wants to get their puppy up and going or get their dog where they've started this new thing. And I want to go out and show my dog off and do all of this stuff. And I just say, you know what? Enjoy your dog. I have 2 puppies that are about 10 months old right now. And I've spent a lot of time working on all of these individual pieces that in about 2 months are going to come together, and I'm going to have I already have amazing dogs, but they're going to be amazing working dogs.
Yeah.
And that is knowing that I have put things together in a developmental way that has not put an immense amount of pressure on them also brings me joy, because I also know I haven't applied all of the pressure to them and to me to make really cool Facebook videos.
Yeah. And I feel like this summer too, in all these different seminars, we've really spent a lot of time almost life coaching, trying to help people learn how to stand up for themselves and their dogs. I don't know, maybe that might be something we could discuss in future times, but how do you get that backbone or those words to be able to talk to others when you just don't quite know what to say? I think we've done a really good job of coaching people through that this summer, especially. Do you see that too, Stacy?
I agree.
I do. I really do. And I think that a lot of what you're talking about also comes down to empathy, and it's empathy for the human. I think you also want to think about giving your dog a little, I'm going to use one of your phrases, give them a little grace, right?
Yeah.
Give them a little empathy. And if you have a dog, this goes back to our topic, like maybe trialing too soon. Like if you have a dog that just isn't showing the joy, focus on getting the joy into your searching in a lot of different places before you even think about trialing. Please, 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 that little green ribbon is not worth it. Think about the
focus
longevity.
on the joy. I love it, Stacy. I love you.
Yeah, focus on the joy. I think we'll stop there.
Good call.
Yeah. So check out the website, join us on Facebook, and thank everybody for listening.
Canine Detection Collaborative.
We appreciate the time you spend with us. If you liked this episode, not only should you follow us so you don't miss the next one, but please also rate and review us in your favorite podcast app. For info on collaborating with us, go to k9detectioncollaborative.com. That's K9detectioncollaborative.com, where you can find our socials and pick up our latest monthly freebie. Join us again to talk training in the next episode.